Maya had one rule she never broke. She never stood in front of a mirror before an audition. Not because she was superstitious. Not because she thought rituals were foolish. She avoided the mirror because mirrors told the truth, and the truth, on audition days, was that she looked exactly like her sister. Same jaw, same eyes, same way the light caught the left side of her face. Same everything. And Lena had already been cast. That was the arrangement. That was the life Maya had chosen, or built, or fallen into, depending on which version of the story she was telling herself that week. She was 32 years old. She had been Lena's shadow for 3 of those years, and she had told herself, every single morning of those 3 years, that this was fine. That this was generosity. That this was love. She was still telling herself that on the night the interview aired. Before all of it, there was a girl who could walk into a room and own it. Not because she was the loudest. Not because she needed everyone to look at her. Maya owned rooms quietly, the way certain people do, by knowing exactly which corner to stand in, which question to ask, which silence to let breathe. She was 19 when the callbacks came. 3 of them, in a row, for a network pilot that filmed in Atlanta. Her drama coach had called her mother after the second one. Her mother had cried, then pretended she had not. The night before the third callback, Maya drove to her friend Elena's house in the rain. Not for any reason. Just because she needed somewhere to sit that was not her childhood bedroom, where the walls still had posters she was too old for but had never taken down. She never made it to Elena's house. The other car came through the intersection without stopping. It was not dramatic. It did not feel the way accidents feel in films. It was just noise, and then stillness, and then a view of the ceiling of her own car, and the strange calm observation that the roof was dented and she had never noticed how thin the metal was. 6 months followed that she did not talk about. Not with anyone, including Lena. Especially Lena. She would only ever refer to that period once, to a colleague at the theater company she eventually joined, as the half-year she was being rebuilt. She said it the way people say things they have rehearsed until the words no longer hurt. The colleague nodded and moved on. Maya had been counting on that. Lena was not untalented. This is important. The story is not the story of a talentless woman propped up by a clever one. Lena had warmth. She had a face that cameras trusted. She had the specific kind of beauty that makes people in rooms want to help her, want to see her succeed, want to be the person who gave her the good news. What Lena did not have was instinct. She could be told exactly how a scene should feel and she would reproduce that feeling with near-perfect accuracy. But give her an empty stage and ask her what she felt, honestly, without coaching, she would look at the empty stage for a long time. Then she would look at Maya. Maya always had an answer. This was not a conscious system, at first. It grew naturally, the way things grow when no one is watching. Maya would read an audition scene with Lena over the phone. She would say, casually, it feels like someone who is trying to stay calm because calm is the only thing they have left. Lena would write it down. Lena would go into the room and deliver exactly that. The feedback would come back. Lena has an incredible instinct for subtext. Maya would read the feedback. Fold it. Put it in the kitchen drawer where she put things she did not know what to do with. She never said anything. That was the first choice. All the other choices followed from it. The role that changed everything was a supporting part in a mid-sized theater production, not a career maker on its own, but the kind of role that gets seen by the right people. Maya had found the breakdown on a Tuesday morning. She had printed the sides. She had sat at her kitchen table and read the first scene out loud to herself, alone, and she had felt something move in her chest. She recognized the character immediately. Not because they were similar. Because they were the same. A woman in her early 30s who had survived something she never named. Who moved through the world a half step slower than she used to, not from weakness, but because she had learned that fast movement breaks things. Who had a way of looking at people that made them feel both seen and careful. Maya read the scene 3 times. Then she called Lena. She told herself it was because Lena needed the work. Lena had been between jobs for 4 months. Lena was anxious about money, about momentum, about whether the warmth people saw in her face on screen was going to last another year or whether it was already fading and she just couldn't see it yet. All of that was true. It was also true that Maya had read the scene and felt something she had not felt since before the intersection, since before the dented roof, since before the 6 months she called being rebuilt, and that the feeling had frightened her. Because feelings like that meant wanting something. And wanting something meant it could be taken. So she called Lena. And she read the sides to her over the phone. And she said, "This is a woman who has learned to love from a safe distance. It is the only love she trusts. She does not offer herself. She offers her attention, and she thinks they are the same thing." Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I can do that." She went to the audition 4 days later wearing a coat Maya had picked out, delivering instincts Maya had given her, opening with a small observation about the room that Maya had suggested she make when the energy felt too tight. The casting director called Lena's agent the next morning. Maya was the one who helped Lena draft the acceptance email. 2 years passed. In those 2 years, Maya built something remarkable. The word for it, the honest word, was invisible infrastructure. She wrote the workshop pitch that got Lena invited to speak at an industry panel. She researched the director Lena claimed to admire in every interview and gave her 3 specific things to say about his third film that were true and interesting and that Lena had never seen. She coached Lena through a table read by text message, sitting in her own apartment with the script open in her lap, a mug of cold tea on the table, watching a cooking show with the sound off. People in the industry began to say that Lena had a gift for reading a room. Every room Lena had read, Maya had mapped first. There was a party, sometime in the 2nd year, at a producer's house with large windows and furniture that had been chosen by someone who thought furniture was a statement. A man in a linen shirt asked Maya what she did. She said, "I'm her sister," with a small gesture toward Lena, who was across the room laughing at something with her head tilted back. The man waited. He seemed to expect a verb. Some action that she did, something she was building, a role she was playing besides the one she had just named. Maya just smiled. The men moved on. Maya stood at the window with her drink and watched Lena work the room, the instincts, the warmth, the carefully placed admiration for the right people, and she felt something she chose not to name. She chose, instead, to fold the program from that night's event into a tight square and put it in her coat pocket. She still had it, weeks later. She found it doing laundry. She unfolded it once, looked at Lena's name in the center, then threw it away. The first crack came in month 19. Lena stopped calling before auditions. It was not dramatic. There was no conversation, no declaration of independence. Lena simply began to trust herself more, the way people do when they have been told they are brilliant often enough that they begin to believe the applause is evidence of something internal rather than constructed. She hired a new coach, a well-known one, a name Maya recognized. She started talking in interviews about her process in a way that was vivid and specific and entirely untethered from how that process had actually worked. Maya noticed. She said nothing. She reorganized her bookshelves the night Lena told her about the new coach. First alphabetically, then by the color of the spine. It took 4 hours. She was calm throughout. She made more cold tea. She did not think about what she was doing. The books looked very organized after that. The press tour was for a feature film. Lena had a supporting role, well-reviewed, the kind of thing that was beginning to shift her from respected to admired. The interviewer was good, the kind who listened, who let silence do its work, who asked follow-up questions that assumed intelligence. Lena talked for 4 minutes about instinct. About how she worked alone. About the specific, private relationship she had with each character she played, a relationship that no one else could enter. She was eloquent. She sounded like someone who had thought deeply about her craft for years. The interviewer smiled. Then she asked about a speech Lena had given at an industry panel 2 years ago, a speech about the debt that working artists owe to the writers who create the language they speak. There was a quote in the speech, the interviewer said, from a playwright named David Soren, about the relationship between a character's silence and their history. Could Lena speak to that influence? Lena paused. Maya had written that speech. She had found the Soren quote herself, had read 3 of his essays to understand what he meant before putting his words in Lena's mouth. She had explained the quote to Lena over the phone for 20 minutes. But that had been 2 years ago, and Lena had delivered the speech perfectly, and somewhere in the 2 years that followed, The speech had become a memory Lena owned rather than a document Maya had written. Lena began to speak. She said something about having studied Soren's work. She said something about his influence on her understanding of negative space. She said something, this was the thing, this was the sentence that cost her everything, about the impact of his famous essay on performance versus presence, the one he published in 2018. David Soren had not published anything in 2018. His only published essay had come out in 2011, and he was very much alive, and very much online, and he saw the clip within 3 hours of it airing. His response was brief, public, and precise. He said he was grateful for the admiration, and he noted, gently, that he had not published in 2018, and that the essay she described did not exist. He said he would love to know what she was actually quoting, since it sounded interesting. The clip moved fast. The way clips do now, not like fire, but like water, finding every crack. Maya saw the original post at 2 in the morning. She read it once. Then again. Then she set her phone face down on the table. She did not call Lena. She sat in her apartment for a long time. The kitchen was dark except for the light above the stove, the one she always left on. The sides for a small regional production were on the table. She had printed them 3 days earlier for a role she had been quietly considering, a small company in a city that was not this one, a director she had never heard of, a character she had read once and thought, quietly, I know exactly who she is. She sat in the dark with those sides and she did not call her sister. The story moved fast. The way these things do. Within 2 days, journalists were writing about the arc of Lena's career with a new kind of attention, the kind that looks for the seams. They found some. A workshop she had claimed to attend that had no record of her registration. A creative relationship she had described in an interview that the other person remembered differently. The borrowed foundation, examined closely, showed its age. None of it was Lena's malice. All of it was Lena's need. Maya gave one interview. A short one, to a journalist she respected. She said that she had always been in her sister's corner. That she was proud of the work Lena had done. That she wished her sister the peace and clarity to keep making things she cared about. Every word was technically true. She knew exactly what she had omitted. Lena called on a Thursday evening. Maya was cooking. Something simple, pasta, water boiling, the ordinary sound of an ordinary life. She looked at the screen for a moment before answering. Lena's voice was quiet. Not the composed quiet of a person who had things under control, but the flat quiet of someone who had run out of a particular kind of energy and was working with what remained. She said, "You knew this would happen." Maya stirred the pasta. "You handed me something I wasn't built for," Lena said. "You gave me an identity and then you watched to see what I'd do with it. And when I dropped it you didn't warn me. You just watched." Maya turned the heat down. She had things she could have said. A long list of things, honest things, things that would have been fair. She could have said that she had handed Lena the tools and Lena had chosen to forget where they came from. She could have said that she had given Lena every instinct except the one to stay honest. She could have said, and this was the truest and most difficult of all of it, that she had never handed Lena a gift. She had handed Lena a hiding place. Because that was what it had been. Not generosity. A place to want things from a distance that felt like safety. If Lena failed, Maya had not failed. If Lena succeeded, Maya had proved she still had the ability to build something. She could remain intact, behind the curtain, unreachable by the specific kind of pain that comes from standing on a stage and wanting it in public. She did not say any of this. She said, "I'm sorry this happened to you." Which was true. Just not complete. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Are you?" And then she ended the call. Maya stood in her kitchen with the phone in her hand. The water was at a full boil. The pasta had gone a little soft. 3 weeks later, Maya printed the sides again. The regional production. The small company. The director she had never heard of. She read them at the kitchen table in the morning, with coffee that was actually hot this time, with the window open and the sound of a street that was not impressed by her. The character was a woman in her mid-30s. A woman who had spent a long time being useful to people she loved in ways those people never fully saw. A woman who had confused loving someone with disappearing for them. Who was learning, slowly and without any great drama, that being unseen was not the same thing as being safe. Maya read the scene quietly, just her voice and the room. She made notes in the margins. Her handwriting. Her name at the top of the page where she always wrote her name, the habit from drama school, so the sides didn't get mixed up in a pile with someone else's. Just her name. She looked at it for a moment. Then she picked up her phone. Not to call Lena. Not to call anyone who needed something from her. She opened her email. She found the contact information for the small theater company in the city that was not this one. She did not write much. Just that she was interested. That she would like to be considered. That she had read the material and she understood the character and she thought she had something to offer. She pressed send. Then she finished her coffee. The window was still open. The street outside was still unimpressed. Maya sat in the chair for a while, in the ordinary morning light, with her name on the page in front of her, and she did not tell herself any particular story about what it meant. She just let it mean what it meant.